none of my computers would work with WebEx, so I'm actually using my phone. This is Juan Armenta. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our meeting today. So I will go ahead and issue a call to order of the February 8th, 2021 Physicians Assistant Board meeting and ask that Ms. Caldwell take a roll call, please.
Sure. Good morning. Charles Alexander. Charles, can you hear us?
Hi, good morning, present.
Good morning. Juan Armenta.
Present.
Jennifer Carlquist. Jennifer, can you hear us?
This is a moderator. Jen was logged into the meeting and she just dropped off. So,
Okay. Sonia Early.
Present.
Deb Grant.
Present.
Diego Inzunza.
Present.
Randy Hawkins.
Here.
Moderator, did Jennifer come back?
I'm back.
Oh, hi, Jen. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that completes our roll call, and it appears we do have a quorum. So welcome, everybody. The next item on the agenda would be number 3, and that would be consideration of the November 9, 2020 minutes. You'll find that in the compendium posted to the website. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes?
Good morning, Juan. This is Jed. I do have one correction.
Please.
On page 9, line number 398, there is a space where it says governors. So either governors should have an apostrophe S, or it should say governor's office or the governor is.
Okay. I see that. Any other corrections or comments from anybody? All right, hearing none, then do we have a motion to make that amendment to the minutes, please?
Hi, Juan. It's Jed. I'll make the motion that the minutes be approved with the aforementioned change.
Excuse me, I'm sorry I couldn't get in on the corrections. This is Charles Alexander.
Yes, Charles. Do you have any other comments?
Yeah, could you note in the minutes where it says Mr. Alexander, Dr. Alexander?
Which page, sir?
It's kind of throughout the minutes.
Oh, okay. So uniformly change Mr. Alexander to Dr. Alexander.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's deal with the first motion first. That was, well, wait a minute. Let's just, Jed, let's table that motion if you would, please, so we can include Dr. Alexander's correction as well. So
Hey,
we have,
if
somebody's making a lot of noise. If you could mute, please, with shuffling of papers. Thank you. So as I understand it now, the corrections are change Mr. Alexander to Dr. Alexander throughout the minutes, and the other correction would be as Jed indicated on page 9. So do we have a new motion to make those 2 corrections, please?
President Armenta, this is Board Counsel Will McGuire. If I could interject, I just had one other additional small change to suggest on page 19 of the minutes.
Okay.
That's the last page. Agenda item number 20 currently says agenda items for the meeting. I just think the word next you might want to insert that between the and meeting. So agenda items for the next meeting, as that's what the item was. I think it's just a misprint.
Got it. Okay. So now there are 3 corrections, and let me repeat those. Those are item 20, adding next, on page 9, adding governor's office, and throughout the document changing Mr. Alexander to Dr. Alexander. Any other comments or observations, anyone? Okay, hearing none, can I invite a new motion to adopt those three corrections and adopt the minutes?
Hi, Juan, it's Jed. I'll actually just amend my prior motion to include those changes.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Sonia Early.
Thank you, Sonia. Could we call the vote then, please?
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Insunza.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire, do we require public comment for this section or not?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you. So I will ask the moderator now to see if we have any public comment on the adoption of the prior minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. This is the moderator, and I have opened up the question and answer panel. So if you would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And while we give you a moment to use that feature, I'm going to do a mic check with Paul Mcdermott. So Paul, you have been unmuted. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, just fine.
All right.
Wonderful. So Paul, I will promote you when it's closer to your time, but we can hear you. Thanks. And we do have a member of the public. Well, they typed no comment. So let me just check. So Teresa, this is the moderator. I've unmuted you and you typed no comment. Do you have a comment?
No, that is correct.
Okay. All right. So you only need to type in that field if you have a comment, but thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, so we have no comments. Would you like me, Mr. Board President, to go ahead and close the Q&A panel?
Yes, let's go ahead and close that. And
All right.
thank you. All right, so that matter has now been concluded. So we can go ahead and move on to item number 4, which calls for public comments not on the agenda. So moderator, please, if you could open that portion so that we can receive any potential public comments at this time for items not on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. The question and answer panel is available. So if anyone would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send it to all panelists. And just a reminder, if you're not currently talking, if you could please mute your microphone, that'll help improve sound quality. Thank you. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, I do have a note that I should note that the board may not discuss or take any action on any matter raised during this public comment section that is not included on the agenda, except to decide whether to place it on the matter on the agenda on a future meeting, pursuant to Government Code Sections 11125, 11125.7a. So again, there is no public comment that you see, moderator?
That is correct.
Okay, let us go ahead and then close that item.
Okay,
And
it's been closed.
thank you. Moving right along here, we'll move into item number 5, which is the President's report. The first item is by the way, excuse me, Mr. McGuire, should we take public comment on that? Or since we had no public comment session, we don't need a public comment, obviously, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Moving to item number 5, first is the President's report. And I would like to point out the waivers that were entered pursuant to the governor's orders with regard to the pandemic. The order waiving license renewal requirements allowed the director, and this indeed was done, waived any statutory or regulatory requirement that individuals renewing a license pursuant to Division 2 of the Code take and pass an examination in order to renew a license, and also waived any statutory or regulatory requirements that an individual renewing a license pursuant to Division 2 of the Code complete or demonstrate compliance with any continuing education requirements to renew a license. This does not apply to licensees operating under any disciplinary order, and the renewal requirements may be further extended. The second order issued by the director was a waiver of statutory or regulatory requirements that an individual seeking to reactivate or restore a license originally issued pursuant to Division 2 complete or demonstrate compliance with any continuing education requirements in order to reactivate, restore a retired, inactive, or canceled license, and also pay any fees in order to reactivate or restore a retired, inactive, or canceled license. These waivers apply only to individual licenses that are retired, inactive, or on canceled status and has been in such status no longer than 5 years. The director also extended 3 orders relating to physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, and nurse midwife supervision for 60 days, and indeed those have been extended now to April 9th, 2021. With that, I would ask Mr. Grant to give us an update on the joint sunset review oversight hearing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd be happy to do that. So after the last board meeting, I think it was the 19th of November, if I recall correctly, the executive officer and I gave a report on our sunset report to the legislature. So for those who aren't familiar with this process, basically the authorization for the board to exist expires every 4 years or so, where we have to report to the legislature and as a matter of oversight to what we're doing and whether or not we're meeting the mandates laid out for us for public protection. So we did that and answered some questions that the legislature had for us in terms of what the board is doing and what direction we're moving. So the meeting went very well, was fairly short. We don't have any huge crises that are causing sort of existential threats to the board, but mostly we just reported on where we're at with our strategic plan and all of the things that we've done to try to implement that, as well as a lot of the work that we've been doing with SB 697 in terms of trying to implement that. So those are sort of the main things that we talked about. And of course, with the strategic plan comes our move towards a fully independent board. And so we explained to the members of the committee, why we're doing that and why it's part of our strategic plan, as well as our progress moving forward doing that. So happy to answer any questions about this if anyone has them.
Okay, board members, does anybody have any questions or comments for Jed on his report? Okay, well, I don't see any activity on that front. So I do want to take the opportunity to thank Jed. I do want to point out that, as most of you know, Jed is a major in the United States Army and is going to be deployed rather immediately to the Middle East. So I want to thank him for asking me to step forward and become a nominee for president, and indeed Sonia as well as vice president. So I also want to thank him for his service to the board and our country, and we look forward to your safe and speedy return, Jed, because we certainly appreciate your expertise and leadership on the board.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'll move to the next item, which is the stakeholder meeting that we had not too long ago with the CAPA Executive Officer, Teresa Chen, who I know is online, their President, Brett Bergman, and CAPA Advisor Attorney Ed Howard. We all had a conference joined by former President Grant, our counsel Will McGuire, and Karen Halbo. And the purpose was to receive CAPA's input and comment on regulatory matters. And I'm pleased to report that the meeting was indeed quite productive. There was more agreement than disagreement on how to effectuate regulatory oversight. I think we all agreed that it was a good and cordial meeting, and we all hope to have that type of interaction in the future. I think the participants well consider the points from each side. In fact, there were some suggestions from CAPA that are indeed reflected in regulatory language, and those suggestions were quite cogent, I think, furthered the goals of seeking to promote the practice of PAs and public protection. For its part, CAPA also agreed to look again at Business and Professions Code 3502.1 and its revision of tying qualifications to a specific date, which could be problematic in an age where technologies are changing and much faster than statutes or regulations. So that's something we need to look at. But in summary, this is the type of cooperation that is certainly appreciated by me, I know, and I certainly I'm sure as the board as a whole. So leadership on both sides of this equation are new, so it was just great that we had a good foundation moving forward. So I wanted to thank Teresa, Brett, and Ed for their participation, as well as Jed and Will McGuire and Karen Halbo. So those are my comments on the stakeholder meeting. Mr. McGuire, do I need to ask for public comment at this point, or can I move on to the executive officer's report?
Oh, sorry, I was getting myself unmuted, but yeah, well, it's all under item 5, so it's your option. Since there's kind of an item 5A, B, C, we can check 3 different times, or as long as we check once at the end of item 5, that meets our statutory requirements. But it's at your preference, Mr. President.
Well, thank you. I think we'll just move through item B then and reserve comments towards the end. So with that being said, let's move to item B. Ms. Rosanna Khan, our new executive officer, if you could please go ahead and give us your executive officer report. Madam Moderator, do we still have Rosanna online?
Yes, this is the moderator, and I see that she's unmuted, but she's not making any noise, but it does look like she's unmuted.
Okay, we'll give her a moment. She may be having a microphone issue.
Right.
Can everyone hear me? This is Rosanna.
We can hear you now, Rosanna, I believe.
Yes, I had to join using a laptop. Something went wrong with my microphone, I guess.
Very well. So we're at the point where we're asking for your executive officer's report. So if you'll go ahead, we would appreciate it.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The board's office is operational and open to the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. Board staff continues to be on a rotational telework schedule and are able to provide essential services to applicants, licensees, and consumers. Since the last board meeting, I am pleased to announce that board successfully filled some mission-critical positions. Effective January 4th, 2021, Julie Caldwell was promoted to the lead licensing analyst position. Ms. Caldwell has held various positions with the board, including administrative analyst and most recently as a licensing analyst. Effective January 11, 2021, Christina Hayden filled the discipline analyst position. Ms. Hayden joins the board from the Medical Board of California Discipline Coordination Unit, where she was the public disclosure analyst for Medical Board, Physician Assistant Board, and the Podiatric Medical Board since April 2011. Effective January 19, 2021, Ariel Gompers has filled the administrative analyst position behind Julie Caldwell. Ms. Gompers joins the board from Caltrans, where she was the office technician for the director and 2 other executive staff. Recruitment efforts are underway to fill the vacant licensing analyst position behind Julie Caldwell and a newly created associate analyst position to perform the analysis of legislative and regulatory workload and maintain oversight of the board's budget. The next item is information technology. Board staff is currently working with DCA Office of Information Technology to migrate to the DCA server. This migration is tentatively scheduled for the week of February 15, 2021. Once the migration is complete, board member and staff email extensions will change from @mbc.ca.gov to @dca.ca.gov. Board staff has also met with DCA Office of Information Technology via Teams to discuss revamping the board's outdated website. The new design and layout of the website will streamline the information presented and make it more user-friendly. And the last item is in fulfilling the board's 2019-2023 strategic plan objective 4.1, the board staff continues to utilize Facebook and Twitter social media platforms to maximize outreach and communication. Do you have any questions?
Rosanna, this is Juan Arment. I actually do. Do we have time frames for filling the vacant staff positions you mentioned?
So the licensing analyst position, it has posted and will close this week. We will screen those applications. And as for the regulatory analyst position, we have advertised and conducted our interviews. We're just waiting for HR clearance.
So that sounds like you already have a candidate in mind and we're just waiting for HR clearance. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And any idea of when that will be accomplished?
Hopefully soon.
Okay. All right. Any other board members have any questions?
Mr. President, this is Jed Grant. Could I make a comment?
Please do so.
I just wanted to, as part of the personnel changes on December 1st, 2020, Rosanna Khan was sworn in and changed from our interim executive officer to our executive officer. So I just wanted to recognize that important change, thank her for her service to the board as interim and continued service as the executive officer.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations again, Rosanna. Even though we've expressed it many times to you, I think it's important to say it in the public meeting. So congratulations, and we look forward to your continued good work. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, Mr. President, this is Charles Alexander. I also want to congratulate all the new hires and a special congratulations to Ms. Caldwell for her promotion.
Great, thank you, Dr. Alexander. Any other comments from board members, please? Very well. I too want to congratulate all the new staff and those being promoted. These are all well-deserved additions and promotions, so thank you. So let's go ahead and move to board activity reports. And Ms. Caldwell, if you'd be so kind as to start us off with licensing.
Yes, good morning. The moderator, if we can scroll to the first report, licensing population by type.
This is the moderator, and do you know what page that is on?
Rosanna, do you have the page number on that? I do not have a full book in front of me. I think it's actually, let me scroll down to the PS. It's after the agenda
think-
item 4.
I think it's page 41.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
So currently we have 20,778 licensees, 14,413, of which 14,413 are current. Apologize, there's a math error there. So that was supposed to be 14,413 plus 31 inactive licensees for a total of 14,444 total current licensees. And then the next report is the summary of the licensing activity. So if you could scroll just one page down. Oh, there we go. So currently we have from July 1st, applications received 816, renewed 3,150. And the next report is the pending application workload. This shows where we're at as far as the desk age and how long the applications have been sitting there. And we do assign them to staff, mainly myself, and Christy currently has them. And so when the applications come in, whether they're online or by mail, until they're actually assigned online, they do have an application age. And then they're assigned, they start counting the desk age. So the 0 to 30 days, which is the majority of that pie chart, is really nice to see that we're kind of within that 30-day range now. That's the office's goal. And then we have a few that are outside of that 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and 91 plus. And those could be individuals that are applying 3 or 4 months prior to graduating from school, or coming from one state to the next and not sure when they're going to move, so they go ahead and submit an application. They could be individuals that have taken the PANCE exam and not passed. We do have quite a few of those right now. We do have a few individuals that have history. So all of those, there's different reasons that they are fall within that category or those date range of 31 to 60, 61 to 90. But for the majority of it, I think a lot of applicants are getting reviewed within the 30 days, and a lot of them are also getting licensed within that 30-day window. And that next screen, moderator, just shows the application page.
Mr. President, this is Jed. I have a question for Julie, if I could be recognized.
Sure.
So Julie,
Please.
okay, thank you. Julie, when the desk age calculation starts, is that the age starts before their application is complete, or does it when does that start? Because if the clock sort of starts before their application is complete, then maybe we ought to think about what those numbers are actually meaning.
Well, the application age starts from the time they submit their application. So if they submit it online, the clock starts ticking. If they submit it by mail, the clock starts ticking. But until it's actually assigned to somebody, then that's when it transitions from an application age to a desk age. So now you have two kind of, we do have an internal mechanism in place. So when I actually review an application, for example, if somebody were to apply January 1st, and I reviewed their application on January 22nd, and they don't have all of the requirements met at that time, we do place an internal hold on their application that stops the clock on our end, where it puts it back on the responsibility of the applicant. So if they had a verification that was outstanding, or they hadn't taken the PANCE exam and we were waiting scores, so that stops the clock from ticking on our end. And then when we get all of that requirements back in, then we put an end date, so to speak, in the application itself. So we do have a mechanism in place that does take it off of our responsibility and puts it back on the applicant. But until we actually start reviewing the application, that's what's the application age clock going. And then the desk is once it gets assigned to when they're licensed.
Thank you for that clarification. I guess I'm kind of curious. So once you start working on it and you find something that is incomplete, is that reflected in these numbers that you're showing here in the desk age, or does the desk age continue to accrue once someone has opened it? So what I'm really asking is this desk age accurate for how long it's taking us, even for incomplete applications?
Yes, because we do stop the desk age once we've completed the review. And put it back on the applicant's responsibility. So it would pick back up if we were to get, so if we got their application on the 1st and we reviewed them on the 22nd, we would put a hold on their account or stop the clock from ticking on the 22nd and say that particular applicant took another month to complete their application as far as getting us through all of the required documents, whether it just be a simple fact of taking the pants and it's not scheduled for a month out, we would not calculate that 30 days into the desk age.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
This is Juan Arment. I do have a question. I think that was answered by Professor Grant's comment. So my question was any bottlenecks that might exist within our board really are, how do I phrase this? There's no bottlenecks shown on this chart. Basically, the delay is our normal processing time, and then, as you told Jed, the clock stops when responsibility to move forward is on the applicant, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And currently, we are licensing applicants. If we review them, say I reviewed an applicant today and everything was in-house, their application would be considered approved and we would issue their license. If we have a couple of different delays, sometimes we get PANT scores. I do not work on Fridays, so sometimes PANT scores come in on Fridays and I will check them on Monday. So we will put an end date in the system and maybe it adds a couple more days to the desk age just because I wasn't here on Friday to print PANT score in order to issue the license. So now we add Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe their license gets issued on Monday. So it's pretty short window from when we get that last item to when we actually issue their license. So I would say the maximum I've seen maybe that we add additional time once we stop the clock and put it back on the responsibility of the applicant is maybe about another 4 or 5 days that we add on. So we're really meeting our goal, which I'm excited about for the most part, within that 30-day range of offering a review and either an update or issuing a license.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Do we have any other comments from board members? Okay, so please carry on.
So the last,
I'm sorry, Dr. Hawkins, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
Is there a primary reason why some 90 plus, is there a major reason why that tends to occur?
Some of them are history, whether it's a disciplinary history by another state agency or maybe another licensing agency within California. We do have crossovers from nursing to physician assistants or EMTs. Some of it's criminal history that even though they're not required to answer those questions in the application, we do get that reported from the background check. So we have to address that and maybe we ask them for some documentation that takes a little bit longer. We do have quite a few people in the licensing drawer right now who have not passed the PANCE exam, and there is a requirement that they wait 3 months before they retest, and so that does add quite a bit of time to their application age. And then we have had some issues. For the most part, verifications and program certifications we're accepting by email. But we do have some boards that are really slow to provide a verification, even prior to COVID. So it's not just necessarily, I don't think that any of these gate ranges are impacted by COVID because we've adjusted for that on how we're accepting documents. But it's just, we are at the mercy of other state agencies and their process and how quick they are to respond and provide verification. So that could be another reason that you see a lengthier time period for some of the applications.
Thank you very much. It sounds like you're doing your due diligence and all these are beyond your control.
We're doing our best.
Thank you,
Any
Dr.
other
Hawkins. Yes, that's what I was going to ask as well. Thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Julie, does that conclude your report?
I think just the licensing performance measures was the last screen. And these are applications that were approved between October 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. And it just shows that we had complete applications of 126 and then incomplete is 310. Currently, we have about 400 applicants that we're processing that we're working on. So. Any questions on this report?
So yes, this is Juan Arment. I do have it's incomplete applications. Those are the applications of which you spoke where the onus was placed back on the applicant to provide some additional information, correct?
It could be a combination of both. It could be that they've applied and we just have not yet reviewed them. And also that they've been reviewed and we're waiting for them to provide the required documents. So incomplete, I believe, falls within that.
I see.
Because the incomplete is not, we definitely have reviewed the majority of those that are in the drawer.
Mr. President, I have a follow-up question, if I could be recognized as Jed.
Yes, of course, please.
So, Julie, I know that a lot of PA programs will tell their students that are about to graduate to start their license application before they even graduate and well before they take their national certifying examination. Is that something that you find helpful, or would you prefer that they not start their application until they have, they're closer to graduation and they have more things done? Which would be most helpful to you in a fast turnaround for licensing?
Well, I believe that we have on our, and we've been having issues with opening up our website today, but I believe we've been telling applicants to apply within 30 days of graduation or taking their PANCE exam. And I think that's on the application, the physician assistant application instructions and general information document. So it isn't something that we promote of like, hey, 3 or 4 months prior to graduation, go ahead and start your application. Primarily because the clock starts ticking on that application. And if they have any issues taking the PANCE, we don't want to limit their ability to be licensed within that year without having their license expire and having to submit documentation again. So their application is valid for 1 year from the date that they submit it, and any supporting documents are valid for 1 year. So if they apply too early and they don't pass the PANCE exam, then they have to wait that mandatory time period that the NCCPA sets before they can take it again. And we just don't want them to be, we don't want there to be anything that stops them or prevents them from getting licensed within that year. It does sound like a long period of time, but we do have individuals that for one reason or another aren't able to complete that process within a year. And then we have to actually, with their application actually is canceled in the system, and then we refund them the money and they have to start the whole process again. So once we submit no longer interested to the Department of Justice and the FBI, we can't get subsequent arrest reports, so that requires them to go and get their background check. They have to complete that again. And so we're just trying to do our best by saying, don't apply too early. I get the fact that you guys are anxious to start working, but 30 days is plenty because you're going to get reviewed and we're going to be able to let you know what you need. And typically it's program certification and results from your PANCE exam. and those all happen well within that 30 to 60 days.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that really you would prefer that they not apply more than 30 days before they graduate. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's plenty because they're not typically turning around and taking the pants immediately. Sometimes, yes, within that 30-day window, but it really depends on if they're ready and what their scheduling is at the Pearson VUE, testing sites, how frequently the test is offered. So 30 days is sufficient for them to get reviewed and updated in our system, and them knowing that, hey, we need the program certification, we need the scores. So that's my recommendation, is now that we've hit that window, I think we're fine moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer. That's very helpful. And that might be something, I know we're updating the website, but that might be something important to put on there, is that, applying too far out can be problematic. So no more than 30 days, because there's a lot of varying opinions out there about when to start the application process. So I think that's good information. Thank you very much.
This is Juan Armenta. Jed, you hit my comment squarely on the head. My question was going to be, how do we communicate that time frame? And I think you answered it, is by putting it on the website. Is that something we need to put on the agenda for consideration, or is that something that can be handled strictly by the EO? I guess that's a question for Mr. McGuire.
I'm inclined to just say you can direct staff to work on that. Can you just talk me through what that instruction might sound like, and then it can just give you a for sure answer.
Okay, well, Jed, as in your position, your faculty position, what do you think would be the most effective way of communicating that within the context of a website or any other methodology we might want to use to communicate that time frame?
I think announcing it on the website, and then maybe sending out a letter to the programs in California, at least, letting them know, within 30 days is plenty. Please don't apply before the 30-day window. But mostly, I think on the website's the biggest way, because we have a lot of out-of-state applicants too.
Yeah, that sounds certainly like a thing that if it's the kind of consensus of the board, the will of the board, you can direct staff to do that. I think here today, I don't see it as an official agenda item or a action item that the board is taking, but rather just this was a byproduct of our natural discussion here today.
Okay, very well. So would we need any type of motion to direct?
No, just maybe confer with give your colleagues a moment to weigh in if they have any further thoughts, and certainly the public's welcome to comment on this item during the public comment feature. I suppose now could be a good time for that, but since it's not an official action of the board, it's not required at this particular moment.
Well, I think we should go ahead and do that, have our board members comment, and then perhaps a quick public comment window, because I do agree with Professor Grant that this is a topic that would assist both ends of the equation, the applications and the staff in processing them. So do any other board members have any comments on directing staff to issue that communique via the website?
Hi, this is Sonia Early. I think it would be a great idea to place that information on the website. I think it will direct everyone and maybe cut down on extended times for Julie.
Thank you, Vice President Early. I think I agree. Anybody else have any comments? Very well. Madam Moderator, if you could simply open up for a quick public comment on this discrete point of advertising on the board website the time window that Ms. Caldwell recommended.
This is the moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the question and answer panel. So if you would like to comment on this particular item, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference.
And while folks are doing that, I'll just remind you, this is Will McGuire. So we're on, I think, item C, little I. So when we're taking public comment, which is great and fine, let's just make sure we take additional public comment on the greater item 5 toward the end here.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. McGuire.
All right, this is a moderator and I am seeing no request for public comment on this particular item. Shall we close the Q&A panel for now?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Okay, very well. Well, absent any objection from any board members, I think the board should direct staff indeed to make those changes as staffing and time permits them. Any objections from any board members? All right, very well. Hearing no objections, I think, Rosanna, if we could put that on your already ample workload to see that that change can be made. I'm sure Julie will be part of that process with you.
Yes, we'll do. We will work with DCA as well to fulfill that request. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments that you need to make, Ms. Caldwell, on the licensing report, or are you concluded?
I'm good. Thank you, though.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Very well. So let's move on to item 5C2. Ms. Hayden, if you would please fill us in on your enforcement report.
Good morning. I'll be presenting my report with Christina Hayden. My name is Armando. So I'd like to start off by reporting. These are from the dates of October 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. On complaint intake, we received 84 complaints. 93 complaints were assigned to the desk analyst. There were currently 0 pending at the intake. Complaints and investigations. We have 18 complaints that were referred for investigation, 72 complaints and investigations that were closed, 149 complaints pending at the desk for analysts. We have 105 investigations that are pending at the field. We have 357 average age of pending investigations. We have 62 investigations that are over 8 months old. Currently, there are 0. Now we're going to suspensions. There are 0 automatic suspensions that were ordered during this time frame. 0 cease practice orders. 0 interim suspension order. Moving on to the office attorney that are at the Attorney General's office, we have 5 cases that were initiated, 27 cases that are pending, 379 days is the average age of pending cases. I'll pass it out to Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Melendez.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members. How are you today? I'm here to, I'm Christina Hayden, the new discipline analyst, and I'm going to present the formal actions filed, withdrawn, dismissed. We had 4 accusations filed within October 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. We had 1 accusation and petition to revoke probation filed. And the administrative outcomes and final decision, we had 1 license application denied. We had 2 probation, placed on probation. We had 3 surrender of licenses. And we have, and in regards to the cite and fine, the majority of the cite and fines are CME audits. So currently there's a waiver in place, so the board is not conducting any audits. And that concludes that section. Do you have any questions?
Dr. Hawkins, may I speak?
Please, Dr. Hawkins, go ahead.
On the, thank you, Ms. Hayden. Just curious about the license application denied and the 3 surrenders, if you have that handy. Certain category, reason for surrenders.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that information available.
All right, thank you.
So I wanted to kind of do some in regards to my job here. As a discipline analyst, I'm processing all the discipline cases. I also post the information onto the web profiles of the physician assistants, and I report the adverse actions to the National Practitioner Data Bank. Look at page, or the agenda item 5C, page 49. And it's a sample of a web profile for a physician assistant. If you look under the public record actions section, that's what's considered the public disclosure. So whenever the board takes any disciplinary action or there's a felony conviction, any of that information is what I enter into their profiles. The example that I provided was a probation, and it just gives, you know, the probation and that's the meeting.
Moderator, if you can turn to page 49.
So if anybody has any questions about that, please ask.
This is Dr. Alexander. I don't have any specific questions about that, but could you explain the citations and fines again?
Oh, the citation and fine.
Yes.
The citations and fines are, the majority are as a result of the continuing education, continuing medical education audits. And because of the waiver in place, the board's currently not conducting any audits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. That brings up a question in my mind moving forward. When we emerge from under these waivers, have we given any thought to a potential bottleneck that we're going to face in this regard? I mean, I can imagine that all of a sudden we're going to have a bunch of issues on this front. And I think it's probably a good idea to begin thinking about how to handle that bottleneck now rather than wait until it's upon us. Are you aware of any thought or discussions or methodologies, Ms. Hayden?
You know what? I'll let Rosanna answer the question.
This is Rosanna. So there's not many that have requested, that have not completed their CMEs. So it's only a handful. And again, they have 6 months from the date of the waiver to actually comply. So I'm not foreseeing any major backlogs or anything like that.
Okay, well, that's good news indeed. Okay, very good. I think you've answered that for me.
Mr. President, this is Jed. If I could be recognized to add additional thoughts on that.
Please.
So one of the reasons I think this won't be a problem is because most PAs are required when they get credentialed at the facility where they work, they're required to maintain their national certification. And so even though the waiver is in place for the state, most PAs have to maintain their national certification, which satisfies the state CME requirement. And so that's likely the reason we don't have a lot of people that are going to fall out of compliance with CME. So good thought, but I think just the way that PA practice is set up in terms of credentialing, I think it's unlikely that we'll have large numbers of people that have not met CME requirements.
Okay, well, that's good news indeed. Thank you for that comment. That's helpful. Okay. Ms. Hayden, please carry on.
Okay, thank you. I just also wanted to touch on the physician assistant is federally mandated to report to the National Practitioner Data Bank. And moderator, can you please go to page 50? So for the National Practitioner Data Bank, any kind of restriction or discipline or suspensions are required to report to them. And it's required under federal law. The reports are submitted electronically. And I've been doing it for the Physician Assistant Board since 2011, as Rosanna had mentioned. And so I don't know if anybody had any questions regarding that process. Okay, well, and that concludes my presentation.
Very good, Miss Hayden. I do want to, if we could back up to Madam Moderator, page 48, I believe it is. And on this page, Ms. Hayden, you break down the basis for the complaint types and source. Looking at the numbers, it seems there's a significant downward trend comparing fiscal 2019-2020 to 2020-2021, although it's incomplete, right? Or is it?
I'm going to direct Armando to answer that question.
Okay.
He deals with the complaints.
Okay.
Yes. Complaints are down this fiscal year, and it's most likely from the effects that with COVID that patients aren't being seen by physician assistants as much as before. When they had the in-person visitation, this is happening with MDs as well, that we would have increase in complaints.
Okay, interesting. So your conclusion, Mr. Melendez, is that the primary driving factor in that significant decline in numbers is indeed the pandemic.
I believe so. From my experience from working complaints in the past, we'd have a lot more, but since the pandemic started, complaints have decreased.
Okay, very good. Any other comments from board members, please? All right, very well. Hearing none, let us move on to C3, which is the probation report. Ms. Vaughn, please, if you would.
Thank you. This is Christy. So for the probation activity report, for the quarter ending December 31st, 2020, there are a total of 60 probationers, 50 are active, and 10 are total probationers. And for the period of October 1st through December 31st, 2020, 2 licensees enter probation, 3 completed probation, and 1 surrender their license while on probation. And Dr. Hawkins, to answer your question earlier regarding the surrenders in the enforcement activity report, 2 of the surrenders were stipulated surrender license in order during the administrative process, and 1 was a surrender while on probation. So
Thank you.
Okay. This concludes the probation activity report. Do any board members have any questions?
Dr. Hawkins, may I ask a question?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
Ms. Vaughn, thank you very much. So does that mean the total number of physician assistants on probation is 60, or what's the grand total, if you have that?
Currently, there's there's 60 probationers, 50 are active probationers, and 10 are non-practice toll. They're on non-practice toll status. So that means they're either their probation is not running right now because they're not practicing as a PA in California, or they're out of state and not serving an active probation with the state licensing board.
And those are the total numbers, not just for this time period, correct?
Yes, that's the total number.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Vong, if you would carry on then. Well, first, are there any other further comments from the board members on the probation report? All right, hearing none, Ms. Vong, if you'd talk to us about the diversion report.
Yes, for the quarter ending December 31st, 2020, there are a total of 4 active participants in the board's diversion program. And that's with Maximus. And this concludes the diversion program activity report. Are there any questions?
Was everyone able to hear that? I was having a hard time hearing.
Oh, were you guys not able to hear me? I'm sorry. So for the...
This is the co-moderator. If whomever is speaking could please move closer to your microphone, as your volume is incredibly low and it's hard to hear you.
Okay, can you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So for the quarter ending December 31st, 2020, there are a total of 4 active probation participants in the board's diversion program, which is currently Maximus. And this concludes the diversion program activity report.
Very well.
Mr. President, this is Jed Grant. Could I ask a question for Christy?
Certainly, please do.
Christy, I know we asked this last meeting, but I just want to follow up because of the pandemic. I just want to wonder if any of the probationers have reported any difficulty in compliance due to access issues or problems with the pandemic.
For our program, I haven't had any significant issues. As mentioned before at the last board meeting, there were concerns about testing, but we continue to encourage them to follow the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's guidelines with social distancing. But yeah, for our program, we haven't had many issues.
Okay, great. I think really what I was getting at there was, is there anybody who is falling out of compliance with the terms of their probation due to pandemic-related issues? And if I understand you correctly, the answer is no.
No, that's correct. No.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that seems like good news indeed as well. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vong, for your reporting. So at this point, Mr. McGuire, I believe that we are now required to open up Section 5 of the agenda for public comment, correct?
Yeah, for any items that were covered within section or item 5. Thanks.
Hi, this is the moderator and Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A. If anyone would like to make a comment, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And while we wait for that, I've had a request to do a mic check for Rosanna. So Rosanna, are you able to unmute yourself? So I see that you're unmuted, but I'm not hearing you. Can you hear us? Okay, so Rosanna, you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. All right, this is the moderator, and unfortunately, Rosanna, we were not able to hear you. And we have no request for public comment. Mr. Board President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6 then. Department of Consumer Affairs Director update from DCA staff. Who is providing us with a report on item number 6, please?
Good morning, Board President Armenta and board members. This is Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide a department update to your board. I'd like to congratulate the board on your selection of your new executive officer, Rosanna Khan. DCA is here to support you as you continue to build your team during a challenging time to lead. It's been a pleasure to work with you so far. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our work. After another temporary closure in December due to state and local stay-at-home orders, DCA offices are again open with preventative measures to safeguard the health and safety of our employees and guests. DCA and its boards and bureaus are maximizing telework to help COVID transmission risk for all employees. Public health measures such as distancing, face covering, and frequent hand washing are required for those employees who cannot telework. Thank you to Executive Officer Khan and board staff who have been working so hard to maintain excellent customer service and protect the public throughout these challenging times. DCA is pleased to announce that on January 12th, Governor Newsom appointed Monica Vargas of Sacramento to the role of Deputy Director of Communications at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Monica has been an information officer at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services since 2015. She also was an information officer at DCA from 2013 to 2015. Also, on February 2nd, Governor Newsom appointed Sarah Murillo as Deputy Director of Administrative Services at DCA. Ms. Murillo has gained a wide range of experience in her nearly 20 years of service to Californians in various state departments, including California Complete Count Census 2020. Ms. Murillo comes to DCA with a skill set that makes her well suited to support all the entities within our department. And her appointment fills the final vacancy in DCA's executive office. We're so pleased to welcome both of them. One of my top priorities here in Board and Bureau Relations is appointments. I'd like to provide you with a brief update. Currently, the board has 3 vacancies, 2 public members appointed by the Senate and Governor, and a licensee member appointed by the Governor. DCA and all the appointing authorities share the goal of a fully seated, diverse, and effective board. Filling current and upcoming vacancies is a priority. That being said, if any members know any great candidates, or if any members of the public attending the meeting are interested in getting involved, please find the link titled Board Member Resources on DCA's homepage to apply for an appointment. For our current board members, 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year. That means all employees and board members are required to complete the training. I'd also like to remind you that Form 700 filings are due by April 1st. You as board members are designated appointees and are required to complete a Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700, even if you have no reportable interest. If you have any questions about how to file, you could speak to DCA's Conflict of Interest Filing Officer in the Office of Human Resources. I'm pleased to let you know that Board and Bureau Relations, in partnership with Solid Training, has developed a brand new board member orientation to be held via WebEx on March 11th. We are very excited about the new and improved training, which has been updated based on board member feedback and requests. As a reminder, newly appointed and reappointed board members are required to take the training within a year. To register for BIMA and for more details, please visit the DCA Board Member Resource Center at dca.ca.gov. Finally, I'd like to let you know about 2 exciting new initiatives launched by DCA Director Kirkmeyer for 2021 to enhance DCA's services to all boards and bureaus. The first is an Executive Officer Cabinet. This group of board and bureau executives will maintain regular communication, provide feedback and information to DCA, and assist with special projects that will impact all boards and bureaus. The second is the Enlighten Licensing Project. This work group is being formed to utilize licensing subject matter experts within the entire Department of Consumer Affairs. The group will help individual boards and bureaus streamline and make their licensing processes more effective and efficient by utilizing best practices, information technology, and cost-saving measures. These 2 initiatives are just kicking off, and I will keep you updated on their work and impacts. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help. If there's anything we can do to assist, please reach out. That concludes my presentation, and I will hand it back over to Board President Armenta.
Thank you very much for that report. We certainly appreciate the input. Are there any board member comments on the report we've just heard?
Yeah, this is Dr. Alexander. I have a question about the sexual harassment training.
Please.
I'm a University of California employee, and I'm also required to do the sexual harassment training through that employer, excuse me. Would that serve as fulfilling the requirement for DCA?
Thank you for your question. I would guess that it would. I can't guarantee it. So I would, if you have any information about that training or a certificate of completion, if you could just share those documents with your executive officer, and she can work with human resources to make sure it does. I would guess it would be very similar to our training, though. So it probably should be fine.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, Dr. Hawkins?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
So I actually inquired at the medical board because I do have a public service position in one of its advisory committees of the FDA. And we had to do an ethics, which I did at the end of the year. And I was told that the ethics, which is obviously different from sexual harassment, could be substituted. Is there a general rule about substitution of training?
I don't know that there's a general rule, since there would be so many different factors to consider. I would think we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Usually if something is another state agency, the trainings would be very similar. But it's hard to say just based on what you asked.
Thank you.
Mr. President, this is Jed. May I be recognized?
Of course, please.
I think one thing that we've talked about in the past, and I know with all the staffing changes, that trying to keep up with all of this has been difficult with the move and everything. But one of the things that we talked about before was having the board be sent, tracking all the required training and sending it out to the board members. I think Rosanna does not have access, but just as a comment as a board member, it's pretty helpful when we get, an email in, hey, this year is these are required training, just as we got from the DCA update. And here's how you do it. Here's how you get to the Form 700. Here's how you get to these things. And here's the deadline. Those reminder emails are very helpful, I think, for board members who are busy serving in multiple places, like Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Alexander just mentioned, to get those reminders to get it done with a link there to do it.
Mr. President, this is Julie.
Yes, please.
Comment? Hi. So currently, Ariel is taking over my duties as the SSA, and she is going to be attending a training and she is working on organizing a spreadsheet for all of the board members as well as staff to see what everyone needs to complete this year. And so she will be providing updates to all board members on what's required, as well as links for accessing the training. So that will be coming your way.
And this is Will McGuire, Board Counsel. I just add for any board members who had specific questions regarding their situation relating to potential conflict of interest or required trainings, please feel free to reach out to me at your convenience, and we can kind of discuss the your individual situation.
Thank you, Will. All right, any further comments from board members?
Yes, hi, this is Sonia Early. May I be recognized?
Please, Madam Vice President.
Yes, I just want to say in the past, I believe Julie used to send out nice reminders. So I'm looking forward to the new person doing the same. But it has been quite helpful, as Jed mentioned, that to get those reminders. But it's invaluable. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice President Early. Any other further comments from the board? All right, hearing none, then I suppose we should open, Madam Moderator, the public comment feature to see if there's any comments from the public on item number 6.
This is a moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A feature, so if anyone would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions.
And while we wait for that comment while it's open, I think I'm going to suggest a quick break for us, probably after budget update. So just a heads up on that. Madam Moderator, any comments?
No, not at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Please do.
Okay, it's been closed.
Okay, so moving on to item number 7. This is the budget update from the DCA Budget Analyst. Would you please proceed with that report?
Madam Moderator, this is Will McGuire. Just confirming on the last item, there were no, sorry, having an audio issue. There are no members of the public seeking comment, is that right?
That is correct. And
Okay,
Paul McDermott is on the line. He's currently muted. I can try unmuting him for him. Let me do that. So Paul, I've unmuted you.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can now, Mr. McDermott. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Mr. President and board members. My name is Paul McDermott. I am the budget analyst from the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I have had the distinct privilege of taking over from Marie, who had just recently retired. So we wish her well in her prominent years in her life. And I'm glad to say that she has left everything in good hands, and she has left me with good reports to report to you for the first time as a board. So I think on the agenda, I think it's page 56 that we need to go to, if these documents are in here.
All right, let's see.
This is the moderator. And Paul, were you wanting to look at wanting us to display the meeting materials?
Yeah, is it not in the package? No, that won't be it.
Okay, do you have a page number?
I thought it was page 56, and if it's not, then I don't have the actual.
Okay.
Well, there we go. There we go. That's it. It'll be this page and then the next page. So typically when we present to boards, we present two documents. We can present a document which you're looking at, which is called the fund condition, and then the next one will be the actual projected expenditures report. So what the fund condition does is it shows your fund as a board. In this case, it shows your revenue streams as you go from top to bottom. It shows your revenue streams of what's coming in. And as we scroll down a little bit more to the bottom, you'll show your expenditures, what is going out. So any business owner wants to know this in a snapshot. What's coming in, what's going out, what's my bottom line? And one thing I want to point out here is if you read left to right, you'll see prior year, which was fiscal year 2019-20. Two things I want to point out is if you go down about halfway down, you'll see repay of GF loan, general fund loan. So in 2019, there was a repayment of a $1.5 million loan. And if you scroll up just a little bit higher, you'll say interest on interfund loans. So it shows the separate line item of about $45,000 of interest was actually paid back on top of the $1.5 million loan that was made out. So not a bad little return on investment there. That was last year. So this year, current year, we have our revenue streams coming in. We're pretty much right on track what we're doing, a little bit higher in the renewal fees this year than we were last year. I do want to point out that the current year column, which is 2020-21, these are our projected dollars that I put in here based on what I've seen for the first 5 months. So these are fluid dollars here, and they will change, and it would give you a little bit more as close to a real-time revenue stream as can be. Now you do have a loan going out of $116,000. That's just the general fund loan. This loan here has pretty much hit every board and bureau. It's just a loan that the department took out when they were trying to plan for the pandemic and everything that any of the shortages we had. And so every board had a little bit of piece of the pie in this one. And yours in this case was $116,000. Now this loan will be repaid if the board, or as soon as, or if the board becomes insolvent, it will come back immediately. Otherwise, I think it's about a 3 or 4 year return before this loan has to be repaid. If you could scroll down a little bit, I only see down to total resources. Okay, just a little bit. Just go all the way down the bottom. That'll give me the whole bottom of the half page. Okay, just going forward, I can look at the line item that starts at 111 program expenditures. This is what's projected for the program to spend. It's projected to spend 2.697. Last year we were at 1.8. So we're, some things are in effect here as far as what the expenditures go. But if you look down, I don't know if you can see, if you look down the very bottom of this document, we have, when all is said and done, when you take your revenues and you take your expenditures, the fund balance is going to be $4.583 million. And then right below that, you'll see 17.6. That is the number of months in reserves that we have in this fund. And why that's important is, case in point, like something happened this year with pandemic. If all resources, revenues dry up right now, we have enough in this fund for the board to operate for 17.6 months. That's a significant amount. That's a year and a half of operations before we really have to start worrying. We'll have addressed the issue at the time, but we have 17.6 months. A healthy fund is 6 to 12 months, so we're really healthy on this fund. And I don't see any issues going forward in the next 2 or 3 years that we have anything to worry about, as long as these trends stay the way they are. So again, the fund condition is your revenues coming in, your expenditures going out. What do you have in the end? If you could then, does anybody have any questions on the fund condition?
I'm sorry, go ahead, please, Sonia.
Hi, this is Sonia. Thank you so much. I just had a quick question. Thank you so much for explaining about the loans and due to the pandemic. Can you elaborate? Because I think I'm hearing that we have less issues with PAs and less money going out. We're not doing mailings, we're not flying, etc. But our loan has gone up. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that and why?
So on the loan itself, that was not to be part of the projections for this year. As we started the year, obviously we started in the pandemic, so this is something that has grown since the pandemic. And the authority on this, the CS 3.92 is something that's just written in statutes that they can come in and borrow for the general fund a percentage, and they divvy it up amongst all the boards. So if we did not have the pandemic, we didn't have the issue, that line item would have been zero. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mr. Board President, may I be recognized? This is Jed.
Yes, please, Professor Grant, go ahead.
So just a quick question, Mr. Mcdermott, I think I have your name right. Thank you for being here and presenting this to us, but I noticed that in your report there, our expenses, our expenditures go up every year. And so I wonder if you could explain why you anticipate us spending more every year. And then also just a general reminder that if our fund gets to 24 months, we have to revert money. And so, I think, we don't want to ever get up to 24 months, but at the same time, just curious why you project us spending more every year.
Okay, real quickly on, can we move down to the next document, which might kind of help? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is our expenditure document. I gotta pull this up. That's tiny on my computer. The second column in, which is your budget. The budget is $645,000 in salaries. We're looking at that. That typically will go up. Now, that goes up basically because of increases in salaries. We'll have MSAs where people get on their anniversary, they'll get an increase. This year actually started with a little decrease because we took a 10% pay cut across the board. However, we're filling more positions this year, and I'm projecting these positions to be filled. So there'll be a little bit higher expenditure in this line item. Case in point, if you look at the one line on that says PYFM 13, that's last year's dollars, where we're 401,000. I'm projecting to fill these positions, which is 5 columns over, at 482,000. So there was some savings from last year by not filling positions, and this year I'm anticipating to fill them. So I carry that salary going forward to the end of the year. That's one increase. The other increase will be the benefits, because the benefits itself, it looks like it's about 293,000. That is proportionally increased with the number of positions too. So that's projected out over the 12 months. So that increase went from last year at 659 to now 881 when you look at all the benefits and salaries. So that's a significant increase there of about, what, 200,000, a little over 200,000. That's part of it. Another part of it is, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see midway through the expenditure, we have an AG, Attorney General increase. Last year we spent $455,000 in AG, and this year I'm projecting $618,000. So we're 150,000 roughly increase from there. So there are some increases due to enforcement. 163,000 increase there. So there are some increases there. And the only other major increase I saw, there were some increases in your rent. Wasn't much. I'm not gonna go over. I projected rent, which is all your facilities. Last year we were at about $70,000, and when I lump everything in, we're looking at about $120,000. So there are some significant increases in salary, in rent, and then also in AG. Those are the big hitters. And every year, pro rata goes up. This year, pro rata goes up. So there are some significant things that go up, but for the most part, the normal contracts and normal expenditures have stayed steady. Now, in question to your reversion, if you scroll all the way down in this document, the very bottom, we will say, here's your total expenditures, projected expenditures, $2.66 million. I had that on the fund condition. It was 2.67. I rounded up. So we have a reversion roughly of about 7.62% of your allocated money, or $220,000. So that $220,000 is a savings that is earmarked or projected to go into reversion, which will then go back into this fund condition. So when it comes to the 24-month statute, I've had a couple boards that actually exceeded the 24-month, and we had to put some procedures in place to get it down below the 24-month. You're doing fine here, even though it's on the high end. There's a downward or a negative trend to go from last year was 21, we're at 17, we're back down to 13, and the fourth year we're looking around 10 months. So we do have a downward trend, and it's basically due to the expenditures, AG costs, salaries, and benefits. And then last year was a big adjustment for everybody on rent as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Hawkins, let me ask a question.
Dr. Hawkins, proceed.
Thank you. So I'm sure it includes it, but I wanted to ask you, the Attorney General's office had a significant fee increase, which a medical board felt or feels. Does that figure the AG includes their fee increase, or is it related to other things related to AG?
No, that increased hit everybody last year. I think we had 10 months of it in our budget last year, so we only had 2 months of the old fee. Because they asked the question, that fee jumped drastically. I think it was about a 30% increase, pretty much overnight for everybody to absorb. So we've been calculating that fee for a little over a year now.
Thank you.
Any other board member comments, please?
This is Jen Carlquist, Board President.
Please.
So I just had a quick question about the AG. Are we expecting and anticipating an increase because of their salary? Because I thought we said earlier that we are experiencing less complaints and therefore utilizing them less with the pandemic.
So what I do for the projection is I take the, as far as the number of cases come in, I only report what has been paid. The board and us, the DCA, don't have control of what actually comes in. So what I do is I take the first 5 months that I have on the books, and I extrapolate that average over the next 7 months. So what will happen is, come when we finally get fiscal month 6 in, I'll plot that in and then re-average it. So if there's a downward trend when it comes to cases, and we are going downward a little bit, I think I'd have to look at my projections earlier. This could come down from 600 and say it comes down to 500. It all depends on the average. So that is a projected number, mostly on the high end, a little more conservative. And same with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I do the same thing. I take the first 5 months, take the average of those 5 months, and then project that average out over the next 7. And then I just make the adjustments every month.
This is Rosanna. I just wanted to add, while we were doing this projection, one of the things that I did take into consideration that we have several petitions out at the field, which will be going to the AG's office, then set for hearing. So that is the reason why the AG cost and also the Office of Administrative Hearing, we projected a little bit higher because we have at least 7 or 8 petition hearings that we are anticipating.
And this is Paul again. I just took a quick look. Your last year's budget for Attorney General was $590,000. We spent $455,000. This year it's $615,000, and I have the projection at the 600 mark, 618. So the actual budget has gone up, and it's just based on averages, the trends that we see in the years going forward. So we may not reach that 615. We may be more in line of the 455, but we'll know in the next couple of months how everything shakes out.
Thank you, Mr. McDermott. Any other comments from the board, please? All right, not hearing any further comment, I suppose it's appropriate, Madam Moderator, to, oh, by the way, before we do that, Mr. McDermott, does that conclude your report?
Yeah, real quickly, just to summarize, when we look at the fund condition, I talked about 6 to 12 months in reserves, we're at 17. When we look at the projection, we think a healthy expenditure is anywhere from 3 to 6%, and we're at 7.6. So the board itself is doing great. Rosanna's doing great with the expenditures. She's being fiscally responsible with the funds that she's been charged with. So at this point, I don't see any issues with the fund. I don't see any issues with the expenditures, and we keep doing what we're doing, and we'll be fine by the end of the year.
Great, outstanding, Mr. McDermott. That's a good report indeed. All right. So before we ask for public comment, any further comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, Madam Moderator, if you would please open for public comment.
This is a moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the question and answer panel. So if anyone would like to make a comment, please type, I would like to make a comment, using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference.
All right, and while we wait for that comment, as soon as we close the comment period, I suggest we take a 10-minute break so that we should return at 10:25 by my count. Madam Moderator, any public comments?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. We have no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please do, and then
Okay.
let us adjourn for 10 minutes. Please let us return at 10:25, and we will pick up their discussions with Executive Officer Khan on item number 8. I'd like to reopen the meeting. Mr. McGuire, do we require a retaking of roll?
Given that we're in a virtual setting and it's hard to tell who's all back, it's probably a good idea.
Okay, well, if we could have staff call the roll again, just to make sure we're all on board. Julie?
This is a moderator, and Julie, you're still muted. Would you like me? I can unmute you. Oh, there
Sorry,
you go.
I just sat back down at my desk. And Rosana's on her way.
All right, please, Julie, if you would go ahead and call the roll, just coming back from recess.
Sure. Charles Alexander,
Present.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Present.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant.
Present. Sorry.
Jed, did I hear you? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay. Randy Hawkins
Yes.
and Diego Nzinza.
Present.
All right, very well. Thank you, everybody. So I think at this point we'll turn to item 8, and that is from our executive officer discussing the potential for a new logo. So if you would, please, Rosanna.
Hi, everyone. Moderator, if you can please go to page 59 of the packet. Okay, so as in my EO report, I mentioned that I've been working with DCA Office of Information Technology to revamp the board's website. One other thing that I would like to start the discussion on is to update the board's logo. With that, I'm going to give a little presentation. An organization's logo is the graphical visual symbol representing the identity of that company or its brand. It is designed uniquely so that it is easily identifiable and sets itself apart from other organizations. This then brings me to the important question: does the current PAB logo reflect what the board stands for? As you can see, our current PAB logo. Is there a need for it to be broader and more purpose-oriented and create an understanding of what our organization is all about? I believe by redesigning the board logo, we will be able to better market and educate stakeholders. If approved, board staff will work with the Department of Consumer Affairs, Office of Publication Design and Editing to begin the process of updating the PAB logo. And we may start, that concludes my presentation. If you want to start a discussion on that.
Dr. Hawkins, may I speak?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
Just wanted to endorse the discussion about a change. I think change is good.
And also, Madam Moderator, if you can go to the other pages, page 60, just an example of other Healing Art Board logos. just to, give an idea of what the other boards are doing as far as their logos.
This is Sonia Early. May I ask a question?
Please, Sonia.
Yes, I had a quick question. So if you scroll back to our logo, it is wonderful. I agree. Change is great. I just had a quick question. Is that a stethoscope? That the blue line is? I'm not sure.
I don't
But
know
I
what
like
that
the
is.
logo. I just wanted to make.
This is Juan Armenta. I'll tell you, Sonia, that's the immediate thing that sticks out to my mind in the context of PA board, but who knows? I don't see the ear component to it. So I do have a question. Is this going to be potentially designed in-house, Rosanna, or are we going to have some type of marketing firm or the like?
We will be working with a DCA design and editing team. That will, yes, we will be working with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. President, this is Jed. May I be recognized?
Of course, please, Jed.
I think your point is well taken, Rosanna, that most of the examples of other boards that you gave us have a design that sort of represents the profession a little bit better. Ours, I think, sort of looks a little bit like the NASA type deal or something. It doesn't exactly reflect what PAs are or what the PA board does. So I would be in favor of having a redesign. I just want to clarify that if DCA comes up with something, the board would still need to approve it before it replaces our current logo. Is that correct?
That is correct. We will be presenting some designs. I'm hoping next board meeting. Otherwise, the last meeting that we have, So probably by August we may get some designs back, if not sooner.
Okay, so Mr. President, would you be looking for a motion, or would it be appropriate to make a motion here to direct board staff to proceed with that, or?
Well, if we could have Mr. McGuire's input, but I think if we do need a motion, let's do that. Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, we have this one teed up as an official board action, a possible action, I should say. So this kind of invites a motion. If the motion could be someone may move that the board direct staff to proceed with the process of designing a new logo, working with DCA's editing and design team, and reporting back to the board with any new proposed logos for a subsequent vote, something of that nature.
Should we open for public comment before doing that motion, or what is your preferred recommendation on that?
I guess either is fine. I guess I'd recommend to make the motion first and have a second so that the public can be aware of the specific motion on the table that they may comment on.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So do we have a motion to direct staff to explore, to actually not explore, to provide us with options for a revised logo?
I'll make the motion. This is Jed.
Okay, very well. Any second, please?
I'll second. This is Early. I'll second. This is Sonia Early.
Thank you, Sonia. All right. So if we would call the vote then on that particular motion.
Well, let's do the public comment now.
I'm sorry. You're right. Can we open that for public comment, Madam Moderator?
Sure, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the question and answer panel. So if someone would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Very well. Then if we could have a vote call, please, Julie.
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Inzunza.
Aye.
Very well. It appears the motion is unanimous. So, Rosanna, we will leave it to your capable hands to move that project forward.
Thank you.
All right, very well. Dr. Hawkins, item number 9 is a report from on the Medical Board of California activities. If you would, please, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members and staff. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, members and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present. The Medical Board last met February 4th and 5th virtually. The agenda is available at the board's website, mbc.ca.gov. The new executive officers were elected at a prior Medical Board meeting, November 13, 2020. They are Christina Lawson, JD, President, Howard Kraus, MD, Vice President, Randy W. Hawkins, MD, Secretary. Governor Newsom's 2 newest appointments to the Medical Board are Alejandra Camarverde of Los Angeles and Ryan Brooks of San Francisco. Approved minutes from the November 2020 meeting will be available at the website in a few weeks. The agenda of the February 2021 quarterly board meeting is available at the board's website. I'm going to just mention a few highlights. There was an update on the state's response to COVID-19. Number 2, there was the legislation cycle is just beginning. I see at least one of the bills we're going to be discussing. 2 bills were discussed. One is SB 48, Lyman, mandatory CME for dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and SB 547, Wiener, controlled substance overdose prevention program. Third, there was an update on the Mexico pilot program. I'll spend most of the remainder talking about the Medical Board's Sunset Review Oversight Report 2020. I will not do it in detail. It was completed and submitted to Senator Roth and Assemblymember Lowe on December 31st, 2020. This is also available on our website. Board staff are meeting with the legislature to discuss board's requests, which include highlighted items. Number 1, increasing our various fees of between 20 to 50% to cover past and future anticipated increases to our programs, including personnel expenses and enforcement programs. Based upon the board's projected revenues and expenses, we expect to become insolvent within approximately 18 months. I would add that we have not had a board increase in over, I think, 15 years, at least over 10 years. Number 2, seeking an increase to our allowed reserve amount from a 4-month to a maximum 24 months of operating expenses. Number 3, authority to seek recovery of some investigation costs. Number 4, ease access to medical and pharmaceutical records. Number 5, increased use of non-adversarial, quote, letters of advice in non-quality care matters that might lead to educational courses or other simple remediation efforts. And finally, in this heading, create a new board to regulate licensed midwives. The additional highlights are separate from Sunset is a presentation on the Medical Board enforcement process. This includes a slide deck for those interested in reviewing the enforcement process at the Medical Board. Secondly, update on actions on revising guidelines for prescribing controlled substances. This guideline was last updated in 2014. It's overdue for an update. And finally, there was a presentation from the Board of Registered Nurses regarding AB 890. That ends my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Any comments from board members, please? All right, not hearing any. Madam Moderator, would you please open for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please.
Okay, it's been closed.
This is Dr. Hawkins again. May I make a relevant comment?
Of course, please, Dr. Hawkins.
So thank you. But one thing I would say is that at our board meetings, we have a substantial number of members of the public commenting. And one of the things that occurred is that, and I think that there are individuals, some of which have strong feelings about the board's disciplinary guidelines and whether we are honoring our mandate to protect the public. The majority of the board feel that we are doing this, but there are members of the public who are reaching out to legislatures questioning whether we are reaching our mandate of public protection. And I hope that you don't have some of the same issues. And I'm only mentioning this now because we overwhelmingly have large amounts of comments from the public when we meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Does anybody on the board have any comment about Dr. Hawkins' comments?
This is Jed, if I could be recognized.
Please.
Appreciate your comments, Dr. Hawkins. Having attended a few board meetings, was the medical board, was really surprised at the amount of public comment and that sort of thing. I think the culture between the PA board is a little bit different than the medical board, and we've been fairly aggressive with our public protection mission, which may be why we don't have some of those comments, but I think your input is really valuable as we're making decisions that if you think Mike could lead us into the similar problem that the medical board is having as we make various decisions. Certainly think that your input would be helpful in helping us avoid those types of problems.
Thank you, and I will.
Thank you, Professor Grant, Dr. Hawkins. Any further comment from the board? All right. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins, for your report. We'll close that item. And we will move now into item number 10, the regulations. And Ms. Halbo, if you would, please.
Thank you very much, Board President. The meeting that was held with, oh, can you hear me? Is this okay?
Can get a little closer to the mic, Karen, please.
Okay, thank you. We met with CAPA to discuss the proposed language around implementing SB 697. And as you can see from the materials in your board packet, I've got a memo walking through all of the changes that I hope everyone has read, and then the actual CAPA letter, so you see what their concerns were and the issues they raised, and then the actual changes from the last time the board voted to approve text. And the way subsequent changes are shown is to double underline something that's new since the board last passed these, and double strike through something that's taken out since the board last passed them. So looking at the text language and the memorandum, it walks you through each one of the changes. I'm going to presume everybody read the materials. I think it's sort of disrespectful to read to everyone something that was sent out. Do people have questions about any of the changes or the issues that were raised? The concerns that were more substantive or bigger were related to the changes to 16 CCR 1399541 regarding supervision during surgical procedures. And,
Right. Yeah, I think this is a good way to proceed, Karen. We will make the assumption, of course, and I'm sure all of our members have reviewed the material. So let me go ahead and request from members any comments that they may have on the changes. And actually, I will go ahead and lean on Professor Grant to discuss initially some of his observations.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. And I don't want to go through and sort of hash all of this stuff. I think that Ms. Halbo's memo in the beginning is really good at describing the changes that we worked with the California Academy of Physician Assistants to make to the prior approved languages. You might recall that there was a problem with the materials at the August board meeting where we approved some of these regulations, and then we held one of them just because there were some difficulties with the language that we knew that the California Academy of Physician Assistants was. It didn't accurately reflect kind of what the intent of SB 697. So I think that the changes here that have been put into place for the current regulations reflects the intent of SB 697, and we generally had some pretty good agreement with our stakeholders as we drafted these. I think the sort of what was brought up at the last meeting was that before we send these regulations forward, to try and get the language as close as we can, rather now before we approve them, again, before we send them forward to the various regulatory processes to get them approved, so that we don't have comments for change that are made in the review process and sort of have to start over. So I think we really want to extend our thanks to CAPA for working with us to come up with language that I think is pretty good. There's only two really areas where we may have a minor amount of disagreement. One is with how physician assistants are supervised while a patient is under general anesthesia, and the other with the tombstoning of our regulatory authority to basically ensure that the controlled substances education courses are compliant with our intent for those courses. So that's a little bit of background, hoping that everyone has read this. It really, from a 10,000-foot perspective, brings our regulations up to date and into compliance with SB 697, which, as you may recall, basically takes a lot of the authorized activities that a physician assistant can do out of the regulations and into the practice agreement, which is made at the practice level between the physicians and PAs that are actually working together, so they have a better idea of what's appropriate for the PA to do. That gives a lot of broad authority to PAs and physicians to determine how the PA is going to practice. The only really restriction on that these regulation changes looks at is what we do when the patient is under general anesthesia. That's kind of some background and kind of where we are with that. Happy to answer any questions or elaborate as desired.
All right, thank you, Professor Grant. I do want to again repeat my thanks for CAPA for joining us in that meeting, and it was a lengthy meeting, and we really went through all of these. And of course, thank you to Karen for really doing a yeoman effort here in putting this together and summarizing this very, very well for us. So, are there any other comments from the board, please?
Hi, this is Diego. I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
So I looked over some of, or most of all of this, and I had a question on a couple sections that just kind of mention.
Did we lose you, Diego? Madam Moderator, did we lose?
This is the moderator. Diego is still logged into the meeting. It just shows that, and it shows he's unmuted. It's just that we're not hearing him. So if Diego
All
can
right.
hear us, he could go to his drop-down menu on his microphone and see if he needs to change his input or output. This is the moderator. Another option would be for Diego to call in for his audio.
Madam Moderator, could you, on the assumption that he can hear us, can you tell him how to do that, please?
Yes, so he would just need to go up to the top of his screen where it says audio and video, and then there's a drop-down menu that tells him how to, oh, thank you, co-moderator. She is displaying the instructions he would follow.
Very good. All right, well, while we're waiting for Mr. Anunza to try to fix the technology issues, are there any other board members that would like to comment? All right, I would like to comment in the interim. I'm in agreement with Professor Grant that the immediately availability is critical for protection of the public under general anesthesia. The anecdotal information there that Karen included in the memo is entirely correct. Under general anesthetic, there is a fear that while the doctor does not have to be in the actual operating theater, if he is allowed to be too remote, he would have an inability to respond. And this immediately available phrase is already elsewhere defined, as Karen pointed out. So I think that is a safe balancing act that protects the public and fulfills the legislative intent of the statute. So from a legislative interpretation and statutory interpretation point of view, I do think we're on pretty solid ground there in terms of OAL approving this. And I reiterate Jed's comment on the tombstone date. At some point, technology, the drug standards are going to change, and it just doesn't seem to be wise to tie us to what 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now may be an antiquated system. So I think that's something that needs to be raised as well. And COPPA was kind enough to tell us that that is on the radar for examining that and see what we can do with that. So do we have Mr. Anunza back?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Diego. We can hear you now.
Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi just went out, and I had to jump on hotspot to try to see if I can save it.
Great. So please, if you would go ahead with your comments, please.
So I had more of a question to the board as well, and see what input would be. Several sections mention physician and surgeon, and I don't know, maybe it might be a trivial type of situation, but like say for instance in 1399.502 and the definitions in subsection F, where it mentions physician and surgeon, I was wondering if it might be more appropriate to say physician and or surgeon.
Karen, if you could speak to that, please.
Sorry, just trying to get unmuted. Yes, many people don't know that the license issued to doctors is they are a physician and surgeon. We think of them as job titles, and the official licenses for a physician and surgeon. And so this was sort of nitpicking, but once we defined a supervising physician as a physician and surgeon who is doing, I mean, that's the title. So when the term supervising is there, it just says supervising physician. But if it doesn't have supervising before it, we use the formal term physician and surgeon.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that.
Very few people are. It's an interesting thing that all doctors, even some that never go near surgery their whole practice, are licensed as a physician and surgeon.
Thank you, Karen. Diego, any other comments that you may have?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other board member comments, please?
Mr. President, this is Jed. If I could just add a question here.
Please.
I'm not sure it actually relates to this, but one of the things that I was looking for in the last several days in reviewing this stuff is the official name of the PA board is the Physician Assistant Board of the Medical Board of California. Is there anything in any of these regulations anywhere where we could remove that second portion so that we're just the Physician Assistant Board? Or am I not understanding correctly what's in the regulations?
That sounds like a question for Karen.
Yes, or Mr.
I need to look at the regulations for that, where you have it defined, and the connection between this board and the Med Board in the Practice Act, because the Med Board's underneath connected, like osteo, and then under osteo, the national. So I don't want to. I want to give you the right answer, and that would take me a little bit of time.
Okay, I think that's great. I've been trying to figure this out for a couple of years and have kind of been striking out. So I don't know that that's actually related to these regulations, but as long as we're submitting a package that includes definitions, I thought it might be appropriate to include the name of the medical board there. The name of the PA board as not. I think the way this happened was originally the PA board was a committee of the medical board, which made sense. And then we changed our name to the PA board, but that second part never got dropped off. And so if maybe as we work on language on these moving forward, we can include that in there so that we could clean up the name of the board. And Will or someone else, if you have knowledge of this, just like to see it corrected.
Yeah, this is Will. I think it's a different reg package because we don't have, as far as I can tell, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not amending the definitions in this package.
Will, the reason I brought it up is because under 1399-502, we are amending definitions. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure.
See here. Yeah.
But so what I'm understanding from you, Jed, is you're saying the proper term would be the Physician Assistant Board of the Medical Board, and so you would want to correct subdivision A.
So under 1399-502, it says board means physician assistant board. If I understand correctly, and I may be incorrect, but currently the official name of the board is Physician Assistant Board of the Medical Board of California. And so I just wanted to make sure that A is clear, that we fix it so that it doesn't say that. We're just the Physician Assistant Board.
Jed, this is Will, and I'm looking at I see what you're talking about now. Looking back at the statute, BMP Code 3501A, it simply says board means the Physician Assistant Board. So were you thinking of somewhere else it's defined as such, or?
Yeah, so like on our charging documents and other places, I note that it says that, and I've been trying to find where in the business and profession codes it says that. I don't have it in front of me now. I did find it a few days ago and then couldn't find it again. So I just wanted to make sure that as these regs go forward, that the name of the board is Physician Assistant Board, that second part of the medical board is not part of our name.
Okay. Yeah, if you find it, or if I find it later on, let's connect on that. But I don't see it in this package, and I don't see it in the statute or the current regs or the amended regs. So I think we're okay in that regard for now. It sounds like maybe it's an operational thing. Maybe if our charging documents are still including that language, maybe that's a relic of the past and needs to be updated.
This is Rosanna. I just wanted to add that in our sunset for legislative proposals, we did include to meet the board's strategic plan for 2019-2023 by statute and striking out all references to the board being within the jurisdiction of the Medical Board of California, except for references to standards and grounds for discipline, Business and Professions Code Section 3527, grounds for discipline. So we've proposed it as a new legislative change in our sunset.
Okay, very good.
That sounds good. I just wanted to make sure that our regs are aligned with that, so that we don't have to, when that changes in sunset, we don't have to go back and change the reg again.
Very well. Thank you, Professor Grant. Any other board member comments? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to direct staff to submit the proposed regulations?
Mr. President, I don't want to step on your toes, but maybe before a motion, we should see if Kappa has comment. I don't know if this is the appropriate time.
Certainly, we can do that. I was going to hold it until after a motion, but that's fine. Maybe it is a good time to do that. So, Madam Moderator, if we could open for public comment, please. I'm sure Kappa might like to weigh in, or at least have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel, so if anyone would like to make a comment at this time, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We have an individual by the name of Ed Howard that would like to make a comment. So Ed, you have been unmuted, Ed.
All right,
Hi,
so
good
we'll
morning.
go ahead and recognize Mr. Howard for his comments. Good morning, Mr. Howard. So please, you have the floor.
President Armenta, good morning, and good morning, board members. Thank you so much, Ed Howard, for Kappa. Just 4 quick points. The first is to reiterate the comments that the president made at the outset of the meeting. We're enormously grateful at Kappa for the conversation we had about these regulations and for our ability to communicate constructively with the board. So again, expressing our gratitude for that conversation and for the collaboration. The second point is to just briefly observe that we still have some questions and are puzzling through the consequences of the retention of the phrase "immediately available." We do very much thank the board for the proposed clarifications otherwise to that proposed regulation, and we'll be able to get our ducks in a row there in time, certainly for public comment. But just to flag that, but also to express our gratitude for the changes that were made to that regulation. The third is that the board materials invite a board discussion on the question of malpractice history disclosure at the time of application for licensure. Just to put out there for the record some of the issues that we talked about in our meeting, Mr. President. Kappa is not necessarily opposed to some form of malpractice history disclosure at the time of licensure, there are some questions that your fellow boards, especially the medical board, have had to grapple with in trying to figure out what is relevant for board consideration and what isn't. Off the top of my head, for example, are malpractice cases that are dismissed with prejudice, should those be considered by the board? Those dismissed on the merits, but not with prejudice, should those be considered by the board? A jury verdict for the defense. Is malpractice history include cases where an appeal is pending and not yet final, which has the effect, as the president knows, of suspending the underlying trial case. If someone has threatened a lawsuit but not yet filed one, lawsuits that are filed but settled for a de minimis nuisance value, lawsuits that have been filed by people who have been decreed to be vexatious litigants. So again, we're not necessarily against malpractice history, certainly at the margins. That could easily be relevant to the board's mission of patient protection. But just to highlight some of the remaining questions, I think that would make sure that the board's getting relevant information for it. And then the fourth point is to circle back with you at least briefly on the question related to 3502.1 and those regulations. As we said in our meeting and to report to the full board, at CAPA's last board meeting, this was the focus of an extremely substantial and detailed conversation. We do hope to be circling back with the full board on our thoughts on that, and fingers crossed with a proposal for you all. With that, and to repeat my gratitude on behalf of CAPA for our collaboration with the board on these regulations, I'm pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Board members, please, if you have any questions or comments, please make yourself known at this time.
This is Jed. I don't want to take anyone else's time, but I would like to discuss E under 506 at some point.
Well, Jed, there's no time like the present, so unless somebody else has a comment, please proceed with your comments on that component.
Well, this is Karen, and I just wanted to pop in that I highlighted because it could be removed. Jed had pointed out, and it's in the memo, that the board gets malpractice information from the National Practitioner Data Bank. And what that is a judgment or settlement in an amount greater than $30,000. So if the board, we don't have to dig deeper than that. Then this could be removed in time. So the idea was the board needs to look at this question and come to a conclusion.
Right. Thank you, Karen. I think that was so that everybody knows that was indeed the discussion. Karen laid it out well in her memo. Jed, I think you had a comment on that.
Yeah, I was just going to, basically reflect what Karen stated it very well. Basically, this, we're already doing an NPDP check, which we got a little bit more information earlier on. So this, I think, we're already looking at the National Practitioner Data Bank. So requiring them to get, disclose other malpractice stuff, as Mr. Howard pointed out, this is really broad and could be really problematic for us. So my suggestion would be that we just remove E. Since we're already doing a National Practitioner Data Bank check, we don't need them to disclose anything other than would be in that.
This is Juan Armenta. I tend to agree with that analysis. This section E, I agree, is ill-defined in terms of malpractice history, and as Mr. Howard pointed out, that that is a pretty broad term that could encapsulate things that we really didn't contemplate, and the national database, I think, would be sufficient. Are there any other comments from board members on this point? Okay, hearing none, I think it would be appropriate to reopen public comment just on this discrete point if there's any further public comment, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I will go ahead and open up the Q&A panel once more. And if anyone would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please, thank you.
Okay, it's closed.
Okay, so then it would seem that there is no objection to the concept of removing E. So I'd just like to ask the board members once more if there is any comment on that potential. All right, hearing none. Will, I guess, Mr. McGuire, I guess we should.
Armenta?
Yes, please.
This is Karen. I could read what I think is the appropriate motion, and if the board members agree on it, someone would say, "I move that," and someone else say, "I second that," and then you have the language correct. Would that
Karen,
be helpful?
that is a terrific suggestion because I was struggling in my mind. You can probably see it on how we're going to word this. So,
okay. I would suggest a motion to remove 16 CCR 1399.530 from this regulation package, to strike subdivision E from 16 CCR 1399.506, and to otherwise approve the revisions to the legal text language as shown on the attached text with the board materials, and direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the rulemaking package, notice the revised text for a 45-day comment period, and if no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, adopt the proposed regulatory changes.
thank you, Ms. Halbo. Do we have anybody making that motion?
I'll make the motion. This is Jed.
Thank you, Professor Grant. Any second?
I'll second. This is Sonia Early.
Thank you, Vice President Early. So do we need to reopen for public comment now that we have a defined motion?
Yeah, I would recommend it, particularly on this item, which we know there's significant public interest.
Very well. Then, Madam Moderator, if you would please open the public comment for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. The question and answer panel is now available. If you'd like to make a comment, we are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator. And if I could request Ms. Caldwell to go ahead and call the vote.
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Inzunza.
Aye.
Did we get Dr. Hawkins?
I think Dr. Hawkins is an ex officio member. He doesn't vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Jed. Well, in that case, the motion carries and the executive officer is directed to proceed as indicated in the motion. So thank you, everybody, including Kappa and Mr. Howard, for comments on that. That was a big item on our agenda. It appears we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So I'm wondering if we should take on another matter or go ahead and proceed with the agenda for the lunch break as laid out in the agenda. What do you think, Mr. McGuire?
Oh, you're asking me? Okay. Just kidding. Well, the only thing is time certain on our agenda is the lunch break from 12 to 1, so I recommend we keep that. Seeing as we have no closed session actually today, unless I'm mistaken on that, I'm not aware of any closed session. If the board is interested in trying to get as much done prior to 12 o'clock as possible, that's an option. If they would rather take a long lunch, that is an option as well.
All right, well, very well. My understanding is we have no closed session items. That was the last word I received from the EO. Is that still correct, Rosanna?
That is correct.
Very well. So let me ask board members, do you think we should move to another item or just take a longer lunch break?
Board President Amenta?
Yes?
There's a little tiny part left where I report on the status of the other two packages, and that didn't happen.
I'm sorry. I ran right over you, Ms. Halbo. Please proceed.
That's okay. Just that the first package is considered, it's the AB 2138 implementation package, and it is under review at the Office of Administrative Law, and most times they have extensions from the governor, and they're in the extension period, but things are fine there, and that package is moving along. And then the second package is about requiring continuing medical education regarding implicit bias. And that package has gone through review with legal and the director's office. It went to agency back in October, and we expect it to come out and to be able to be filed at the Office of Administrative Law within the next few weeks.
Very good. Outstanding. Does that conclude your report, Ms. Halbo?
Yes, that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, great. Sorry for running over those two items. Very well. So the question of the day is do we take a long lunch or proceed with another agenda items? I would ask the board members to comment.
This is Jed. I would prefer that we just proceed.
I would agree. Early.
Okay, then that shall be what we will do. So let us proceed then to item number 12, report by legislative committee to consider possible positions of the board regarding legislation. So Sonia or Jen, you have the floor. However you organize yourselves, please go right ahead.
Hi, this is Sonia Early, and I would like to recognize my committee member, Jen Conquest. I will be presenting the legislative committee report to possibly see if we need to discuss or take any possible actions for consideration. The first is SB 49 by Lamone regarding dementia and Alzheimer's disease. This bill would require that the PA board to adopt regulations to require each person renewing their license as a condition of license renewal to complete at least 10 hours of continuing education on the special care needs of patients with dementia. This bill is currently in process and progress, so it may have impact, meaning that we would have to do an additional 10 hours. So it's something for us to consider. AB 29.
But before we move on, may I be recognized?
Yes, I was gonna ask Sonia if we could take these bills one at a time so we can have a comment from everybody. So yes, Professor Grant, you're recognized. Please go ahead.
I think I understand where they're trying to go with this, and in terms of better awareness of dementia. But PAs practice all across the spectrum, and there are some PAs that really and probably many PAs, since the minority of PAs practice in primary care or geriatrics, that don't interact with demented patients at all. And so, for example, a general surgery PA or a pediatric, someone who's in pediatric practice, or maybe OBGYN, they probably don't deal with these issues very much, if at all. So I think it's a bit onerous to require them to do 10 hours every 2 years of CME for this. So I would be opposed to this. I'm not sure what the political implications are of making a formal opposition to this, but if we're going to take a position, I would recommend oppose unless amended to only include people who are practicing with patients that have a patient population that includes a reasonable likelihood of encountering dementia.
And I would agree. And one thing that stood out in the bill is that PAs may have a little bit more stringent requirements also. So I would agree with that.
Right. I think the PAs were 10 hours where physicians only had to do 4. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not quite sure on the.
Yes, I'm sorry, Sonia. Yes, that is what the legislation seems to require, which struck me as a bit odd as well.
Dr. Hawkins, may I speak?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is I may have misheard, but I thought Nurse Shirley said Senate Bill 49, but I may have misheard her. It's actually 48. The medical board had a significant discussion about this bill, back and forth, and ultimately we decided that the president, vice president, and a member volunteer, happened to be me, would discuss a letter to be sent to the author involving oppose unless amended, but getting the language correct. There was a fair amount of dialogue, and you've touched on a couple of those already. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Further comments? All right, hearing none, is it appropriate, Mr. McGuire, then to formulate a potential position right now, or what are the mechanics of doing that, or should we refer this for further comments and study?
That is the option of the board. Both of those are options for the board. You can vote today. You can make a motion today and vote to take any particular position on an individual bill or propose direct staff to propose certain amendments. Typically, when the board takes a formal position like they are considering doing today, that will come with a direction for staff to draft a letter and send it to the appropriate legislative office to relay their position. But if the board is not, ready to make such a decision today and wants to conduct further study, it can direct staff to as well. I think a motion probably is not required for that, but it certainly doesn't hurt to make one. It would allow for a full kind of discussion of the various options. So perhaps some board discussion, perhaps a motion and some public comment, and I can help you along as we move forward.
Very well, thank you, Mr. McGuire. My feeling is, and I invite discussion on this, is there should be a position opposing this for the reasons that Sonia and Jed mentioned. I don't know how we would formulate a modification response. So my thinking is do we direct staff to study this and look at what our position would be in terms of modifications, or do we simply oppose unless modified and see where that goes? I think if the medical board is doing the same thing, perhaps if we do a similar action, it'll carry a bit more weight. So I'd invite discussion on that question.
Mr. President, may I be recognized?
Of course, please.
In the past, when we take a position, typically it would be, opposed unless amended, and then a listing of the things that we would like to see changed in the bill. And then at subsequent meetings, we'd look at any changes that are made in the bill to see if we want to change our position. That's typically how we would do it in the past. So when the motion would come forward, we would say, opposed unless amended to say the following things, and then direct the staff to send a letter reflecting that to the author of the bill.
Very well. So any other further comments in light of this discussion from board members? Well, then let's go ahead, and Jed, do you have a motion to make then on this front?
Yes, I would like to move that the board take a position of opposed unless amended on SB 48. And the items that we would like to see amended are, we would like the same number of CME hours required as physicians. And we would like to see the bill restricted to only those that regularly practice with a patient population where there's a higher incidence of dementia, such as geriatrics.
Very well. That is the motion. Is there a second?
I second. This is Sonia Early.
Thank you, Vice President Early. I suppose now it would be appropriate to request public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. All right, this is the moderator, and I see no requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Please, Madam Moderator, thank you.
You're welcome. It's closed.
All right. Ms. Caldwell, if you could please call the vote.
Mr. President, before we call the vote, would it be appropriate to maybe see if Dr. Hawkins has any comment on the motion?
I think that's a fine suggestion. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes, I mean, I agree with the amendments. And the reason why I wanted to be involved in the drafting of that letter was that our president is a lawyer, capo lawyer, and the vice president is a ophthalmological neurosurgeon. And I'm in private practice, although I'm a specialist. The vast majority of my practice is internal medicine. And so we had some of the same discussions about what if we have an orthopedic surgeon who's not really dealing with this group, a very, very important group of individuals. Should that person be required to take these courses? And then the second thing was, should the legislature be in the habit of dictating what is appropriate CME? So anyway, good amount of dialogue. And that'd be my only comment. I think what you're stating is appropriate. And we agree that at the time you send your opposed, if amended or what your amendment is, you should submit it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And I think that's a particularly noteworthy comment, that legislators are probably ill-equipped or not as well equipped, I should say, as the specific board to determine what CME requirements should be. It's just a heavy specialization, which assemblymen and senators may not have the full insight that the board, by its inherent nature, might be in a superior position to exercise. So I thank you, Doctor, very much.
Hi, may I ask a question?
Please.
Rick, may I ask a question of Dr. Hawkins? Would our proposal be in line with what the medical board is requesting or thinking? Your thoughts?
We haven't generated the letter yet because the meeting just ended, but I expect that it will be similar, particularly regarding the making this something, if it's going to be a requirement, to be for those who actually take care of this very, very important group of patients. And again, I would think that I'm not sure why they would say PA 10 CME hours and physicians 4 CME hours, particularly the internal medicine and family practice PAs are seeing a large number of the same groups of patients, so they'll be exposed to this. I think that my final comment would be we can try to acknowledge what the intent is of the legislation. We just have to ask them, does this actually accomplish the goals that you want to meet? That is, addressing this large group of citizens with this diagnosis, and we should really be acknowledging there's a need to address this early as possible, perhaps, and have a standard of evaluating and perhaps treating this group of patients. One of the problems that Correlate mentioned, which is not exactly the same, is that we needed to be careful about the legislation passed, and all of a sudden you see tons of drugs directed at treating this condition. That's an important thing to accomplish, but is the pharmaceutical companies one of the ones pushing this? We know research needs to be done in this area. We know it's a big problem, but we just have to sort of weigh and balance things. And that would be my comment.
Thank you.
Very, very good. Thank you, Vice President Early and Dr. Hawkins. Any further comments from the board on this legislation? Professor Grant, you made a motion that has been seconded. In light of this conversation, I think the motion still sounds appropriate. Any thoughts on that?
No, I would continue with, I don't think I would change my motion.
Very well, thank you. In that case, Ms. Caldwell, could you call the vote, please?
Sure. Ask for your forgiveness. The phone rang. I had to attend to that, so I did not hear what the motion is. Could that be repeated?
Mr. Grant, if you would, please.
Yes, the motion is to oppose SB 48 unless amended, with the staff being directed to send a letter to the author stating that our position on the bill and that the amendments we would like to see is that the required number of CME hours would be the same for PAs as it is for physicians, and that the bill would only apply to those who regularly see patient populations where dementia occurs. So people who practice in a specialty where dementia would be a common finding, such as geriatrics, internal medicine, or primary care.
Perfect. And the second was by?
Vice President Early, second.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. So Charles Alexander?
Aye.
Juan Armenta?
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist?
Aye.
Sonia Early?
Aye.
Ed Grant?
Aye.
Diego Inzunza?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And Vice President Early, I guess AB 29 is next.
Yes, AB 29 by Cooper regarding state bodies and meetings. This bill would add requirements pertaining to what information must be made public before board meetings. And that notice would include all writings or materials provided for the notice of meetings to the number of state bodies by staff or state agency, boards, commissions. That material must be made available by the state body's internet website, and to any person who requests that meeting material in writing on the same day as dissemination of the writings and materials to members of the state body, or at least 72 hours in advance. So the bill would prohibit any state body from discussing those writings or materials or from taking action on an item which those written materials pertain at the state or state body, unless the state body has complied with those provisions. Any comments or idea?
Yeah, this is Juan Arment. I do have a comment. I am certainly a big proponent of transparency in government, so I don't see anything in this bill that makes our staff's job more difficult than what they're already doing, unless I'm missing something. So I really don't have any trouble with this particular piece of legislation.
Mr. President, this is Jed. May I be recognized?
Of course.
So I would just, out of curiosity, the 72-hour thing concerns me a little bit because sometimes we are updating our board packets even right before the meeting or the day of the meeting. So I wonder if our executive officer might tell us whether or not there would be an impact by the 72-hour rule.
There may be, because sometimes we do have walk-ins of material. So again, for this board meeting, we made sure that all meeting materials were available, posted way before time. But there may be some circumstances where material won't be, maybe a report that we have to rerun or something like that to give accurate data. So there may be issues there if we're bringing in walk-ins, at the time of the meeting.
So under this bill, then, would that mean that that item couldn't be updated or couldn't be addressed? That's my concern, is that there might be something that comes up that we normally would just update right before the meeting so we have the most accurate information. Does that mean that we wouldn't be able to discuss that at the meeting?
So we have to send the request over to DCA for posting. So, and they have other boards and bureaus and other requests as well. So just making sure that, again, I have to work with them, and they're very responsive. But I just want to make sure that we meet that immediate, like, hey, can you please replace this and update our meeting material, or put this on our website because this is an updated version of the material that was posted prior.
Any further comments from board members? Well, I would offer the following comment. We're really operating with a deadline right now, right, Rosanna, and that is the meeting itself for updated material. So really moving it back 72 hours would simply adjust our workflow to make sure that our packets are updated. And that's why I didn't have a particular problem with it, but I'm certainly interested in other comments from the board members on that point, and even our executive officer on that point.
This is Jed. I just, having recalled over the last several years of meetings, it's not that unusual that we have last minute updates to the board packet before the meeting. That's been fairly common in my experience. So I'm just wondering if this bill might result in incomplete information in the board packet, or a delay of a topic being discussed because of last minute changes or something like that. That would be my only concern with it. But like you said, it just moves the deadline. Hey, you have to have everything in 72 hours before. I don't have a particular problem with it. I just can recall several meetings where we had last minute updates to packets.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members, please? Does anybody have a motion on whether to support or oppose modifications of this bill? Or, Will, do we even have to take a position?
No, you don't have to take a position if you don't wish to.
Well, I'll defer to the experience of other board members that have perhaps more lengthy experience than mine, and on whether we should even take a position in this or we should oppose it. I mean, clearly this bill isn't targeted just towards us, but it's all state bodies. So
I might just ask a question of the board staff and to see, do you feel like this bill, if passed, would have any significant impact on your workflow in terms of preparing board packets and conducting meetings?
This is Rosanna. Again, I just doing this for the since you know, I was interim and to this board meeting, I just feel like this will take our ability to do last minute walk-ins if there is any updates. You know, we had that update regarding one of the regulations. We you know, updated the language, was able to send it to DCA, but again, I just want to make sure that once we have changes or amendments, we are able to push it to the web right away, and we have to work with DCA in order to do that. It's not an immediate turnaround, but again, if this passes, there may be an immediate turnaround, but again, DCA works with other boards and bureaus as well with their requests.
Right, I understand that there's a process that you follow when you update the packets, but what I'm asking is, would this, if you had to stop, like make a cutoff of that process, would that change anything in terms of preparedness for meetings, or do you foresee any difficulties with board meeting materials based on a 72-hour earlier cutoff before the meeting?
I would say no right now. Again, given how the materials that I've worked with so far, again, last board meeting, the board did allow us the 1 month period. Our prior meetings for January, you know, our last meeting was November, and normally we have a January meeting. This time we got that 31 days, and our meeting was set for February. So it did give us you know, that timeline to make sure that all materials were, you know, we were able to work on, especially with our data, because we had data that was from, you know, October 1st through December 31st, so the 3 months, all the books closed, and we were able to run our report. So I didn't see any issues with that if we had that 1 month time period to work on all our materials.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would suggest that we just take no position on this bill.
I think I was leaning in that direction too. Thank you, Jed. Does any other board member believe we should take a different position than the no position stance?
Did we want to consider just watching? Is that an option, or is that the same thing? It's the same thing.
That's a good question. I don't know that we need to, what do we need to do in that regard if we follow Sonia's recommendation, Will?
That's probably an operational question for maybe back to Sonia, as far as how does your committee decide whether it's going to watch or do nothing regarding a particular bill, or does it matter?
Understood. Okay. Well, it seems like we have a consensus emerging is to not take any position, but then we would just ask that committee, Sonia, just to inform us of any further developments on that statute.
Okay, great.
Sonia, that was sort of maybe a poorly phrased question by myself, but is there some distinction that your committee uses to differentiate?
Yeah, so in the past, we would either say yay, nay, or watch. And so I just wanted to see what the board wanted to do. But I get the entire, gist of what we want to do. But I think in the past, we would say we would just watch the bill, which I think is the same thing, but we would watch it.
Yeah, I think with prior committees, Sonia, what happened was if we said watch, they would keep it on the list of bills that we talk about every meeting versus not taking any position and not watching it. They just didn't discuss it at further meetings.
Got
I
it.
see. Okay.
Oops. Okay. All
And
right. Well, we don't have to think further.
I would be fine with a watch position if we want to keep an eye on it. I would think that would be fine too. I just don't think we should take a. I would prefer not to take a oppose or support position, but if we want to keep an eye on it, I think that's appropriate.
Right. I'm in agreement.
Okay. Watch.
Okay. And we do not need a vote on that, correct, Will?
Right.
Okay, thank you. So Sonia, lead us into AB 54, please.
All right, AB 54 by Kylie. That regards our COVID-19 emergency order violation in regards to license revocation. For this, the bill would prohibit the Department of Consumer Affairs, a board with Consumer Affairs, and the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control from revoking a license for failure to comply with any COVID-19 emergency orders unless the board or department can prove that lack of compliance resulted in transmission of COVID-19. How would we like to proceed?
I think this is an area where practitioners' input is particularly valuable. So I think the licensees on the board, I'd invite you to comment on this.
So if I understand correctly, both this bill and the next one seek to discipline a licensee if their failure to comply with proper preventive measures causes a transmission of COVID-19, but restricts discipline if it does not cause transmission. So for example, a licensee refuses to wear a mask when seeing patients. That doesn't result in any transmission of COVID-19. They can't be disciplined. They refuse to wear a mask and it does result in some transmission of COVID-19, then their license could be disciplined. Is my understanding correct, Sonia?
I believe you're correct.
So Jed, this is Jen and Board President Juan. I'm just wondering about how would you ever prove that the transmission occurred from that mask provider? There's no way to trace it.
That was going to be, thank you, Jen. This is Juan Armenta. That was going to be my comment from a legal perspective. That is a near impossible standard to indeed any disease spread. I can't think of a good hypothetical in which you can clearly identify a disease spread. Well, perhaps something blood to blood or something like that, but something that is transmissible, airborne and transmissible, I do not see how we would ever meet this standard to prove that a lack of compliance resulted in the actual transmission. And therefore, I think it could cause us, I mean, we would be exercising our discretion, of course, whether to bring an action, but the scientific problems are just, to me, from a legal perspective, insurmountable. If I was defending this case like this, just looking at it from right now, it's a slam dunk. I don't understand how we meet the standard. So I don't know that it is of any use. Really, this is. I mean, we could still impose discipline, but not suspend. I don't think this is a well thought out bill.
I agree with you, but I'm not really sure why this is even on the radar. I mean, if we're all mandated to wear masks, I just don't understand the intent of this and why we're getting involved. It just doesn't make sense.
I think the intent really here is willful disregard for PPE is what they're getting at. So there's someone that just willfully refuses to, take appropriate precautions against transmission and they cause a lot of transmission. They want that person disciplined.
But Jed, shouldn't that be their employer that disciplines them?
Well, they're looking at it from a public safety perspective, which is, I think, how it got to the board. The problem is just due to the nature of COVID-19, it would just basically be impossible to prove that they were the cause of the person acquiring it. So I think I get what their idea behind it is. If there's a healthcare provider that refuses to take appropriate precautions against transmission, we want them, to have their license disciplined or revoked or whatever. I think that's the idea behind it. But from a practical perspective, like President Armenta said, I don't know how we would ever make this work. And we already could take action against their license under unprofessional conduct by, if they did have a super spreader event from one licensee or something. So that's just my understanding on it. I think your points are well taken, Jen. I'm wondering if the medical board took any positions on these, if Dr. Hawkins has any input.
Thank you. This has not come up yet. I'd imagine we'd have some very, very similar concerns, I would imagine, being able to take somewhat of the temperature of the members, but it has not come up yet.
Well, this is Juan Armenta. I just don't see how this is workable at all. And Jed brings up the point that if we did have some type of egregious comment, there are other avenues we could use to discipline the licensee. So I don't see how this is useful. And in fact, if it's construed as some type of mandatory duty to impose discipline, could create all kinds of problems and waste for us because we're just not going to be able to prove up that case.
I would agree. And what I can do, if the committee would like, is to take a watch stamp. I can report back to let you know that if it's passed or advanced in its standing.
I think that absent objection from the board, I think that's good. We put it into the watch column just to keep an eye on this because this could have some potential impact that on us that I think it's just impractical. So anybody else have any comments on putting this into Sonia's watch list? Okay, having no further comment, we'll ask you to do that and put it on your watch list, Sonia.
All right, great. And we have lastly SB 102 by Melendez, and it's similar with COVID-19 emergency order violations and license revocation. So it's similar to AB 54, and what I can do is put that on the watch list as well.
Right, and the language is virtually identical in terms of legal standards. So obviously all those comments we already had apply. So great. So Sonia, absent any objection, we'll ask Sonia to put that in her watch list as well. Is there any objection to doing that? All right, hearing none, that'll close item 12, which means.
And thank you, Mr. President. Ends my report.
Oh, yes, I forgot to ask you that part. Thank you, Sonia, so much for your report. That's great. Thank you, Vice President Early. Okay, that'll close item 12. And
Mr. President, you may wish to see if there's any public comment on this item.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Madam Moderator, can we see if there's any public comment on these on item 12?
This is Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, it's closed.
Very well. That brings us to item number 13, agenda items for the next meeting. I'd inquire of the board if there are any agenda items they would like to see placed beyond our usual items on the agenda.
This is Jed. The Education and Workforce Committee update, the Accreditation Review Commission for Physician Assistants will have met prior to the next meeting, so we should include that subcommittee update in the next agenda.
Excellent, thank you. Rosanna, I assume you have made a note of that.
Yes, I have.
Any other comments on items for the next meeting?
Yes, this is PA Early. I have a quick question. Who is on that committee with you? I believe, Jed, you're on that committee?
That's correct. Dr. Alexander and I are both on that committee. So one of us or both of us will get that report done before the next meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Any further comments from the board members on agenda items? All right, hearing none, would you please, Madam Moderator, open for public comment on item 13?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. This is the moderator. I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Very well. Okay, with that item closed, Rosanna has made her notes on the agenda item. We will consider that that component closed, which brings us to item 14. This is remarkable. We got through the entire agenda in the morning session. Once again, I want to thank Jed Grant for his service to his country and the board and wish him a safe journey and a speedy return. I also wish to congratulate again Vice President Early on her position, and of course all our new staff members and promoted staff members, and particularly our new EO, Rosanna. And I also want to thank CAPA for attending and commenting. That is just a terrific meeting and input we had, so we really do appreciate your input and look forward to working with you, of course, always in the future. So unless we have any further comments, I think I would like to call for adjournment. Any comments?
Yes, just before we adjourn, again, I just want to thank Jed for his service just to the PA board and to our country. We, again, wish you a speedy return and congratulate all the staff members for their new positions. And then also want to thank President Armenta for hosting a great meeting today. It's your first day and it went incredibly well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I was a little nervous when we started out and I couldn't even connect. So I'm glad we were able to get through it. So, all right. Well, thank you all. If there's no further comments, I think I will go ahead and gavel the session closed.
Just a procedural question. Sometimes we have a vote to close the meeting and other times it just closes. What's the appropriate procedure there?
It's not an official action of the board, whereas you're taking a position or something. It's simply a kind of ministerial thing. If it's a preference, you can always do that, but it's not required.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Very well. Any further comments, board members? All right. Well, hearing none, then I'll go ahead and gavel this closed. Thank you very much for all in attendance and good luck until next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks
all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.